Hi guys. Okay, so while I'm not here today, you are going to do some reviews. So this is your second to last grade for the quarter. So I will be grading this Ed puzzle, and then I will be updating your Alex Topics grade at 3 o'clock today. So you have until 3 o'clock to get you can get at most 50 topics, okay? All right, so you are going to turn this paper in before you leave class today, and everything I have you fill in, you should have filled in, and along with the problems I ask you to do yourself. Alrighty, so this review is on solving quadratic equations. It says the solutions to a quadratic equation are the points at which the parabola intersects the x-axis. So remember, we have our parabolas, and these solutions are where it crosses this x-axis. Solutions are also referred to as roots, zeros, or x-intercepts, and a quadratic equation can have two solutions, like that example I drew since it crossed it twice, one solution if it only crosses your x-axis once, or no real solutions if it doesn't cross the x-axis at all. And here's what that could look like. So say you had this, and maybe your parabola is like that. So it never crosses that x-axis. That would be no real solution. All right, it says to solve each equation. So we're gonna do this by factoring. So remember, if it's just a binomial, meaning two terms, all you have to do is factor out the greatest common factor. So between an x squared and an 8x, they have an x in common. I can factor out an x. So I'm going to factor out my x, and when I do that, I had two x's, I'm left with one, plus I had one x, but I'm going to factor it out. So there's just an 8, and it still equals 0. At this point, we essentially have our two factors. We have an x, and we have an x plus 8. So we're going to set the x equal to 0. And we're going to set the x plus 8 equal to 0. And we're going to solve both of those for x. Well, of course, this is already solved for x. X equals 0 is one of our solution. The other one, I would subtract 8, put it on the other side, and my other solution is x equals negative 8. So the solution to this quadratic is 0 and negative 8. Alrighty. For number 37, it says 4x squared equals 10x. Well, remember we talked, these things have to be set equal to 0, like that first one, before we can even start. So the first thing we're going to have to do is move this 10x to the other side. Since it's a positive 10x, we subtract 10x to put it on the other side. When we do that, we get 4x squared. I can't really combine these, so I'm just going to write minus 10x equals 10x minus 10x is just 0. So we have this. All right, now I want you to finish solving this. So think about it. What goes into 4 and 10 that you can take out? And what can you take out between an x squared and an x? And write your GCF, write what's left, then set each of your factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So go ahead and do that now. All right, number 42. So this one has 3 terms, and it's not set equal to 0 again, so that's the first thing we're going to have to do. I have to move this positive 6 to the other side. So to get that to the other side, since it's positive, I would subtract it over. So it would be a minus 6, and 6 minus 6 is 0. Now this is not a binomial. This is a trinomial. There's 3 things there. So this is where we have to say a equals 1, b equals 5, and c equals negative 6. And we have to make our x. And remember, we do a times c on top and b on the bottom. So a times c would be 1 times negative 6, which is negative 6. And we said b is just 5. So we need to think of all of our factors of negative 6 that would add to make 5. And I'm multiplying to get a negative, but adding to get a positive. So I know my bigger number has to be positive. So I could do 6 times -1 or 3 times -2. Both of those multiply to get -6. But the only one that adds to get a 5 is this first one. So I know my two factors are 6 and -1. So I'm going to rewrite my problem, splitting the middle to these two new numbers. But everything else is going to stay the same. So it'd be x squared plus 6x minus 1x minus 6 equals 0. So again, all I did is I split this 5x into these two, a 6x minus a 1x. And the whole goal of that is because now there's 4 terms, and I can group the first two and group the last two. So now we're going to try to think what goes into an x squared and a 6x. So the only thing that I can take out is an x because they both have an x. So I'm going to put an x here. I had 2 x's, but I'm taking 1 out, so I'm left with just 1 plus 6. I had an x, but I'm taking it out. And that's the first grouping. In the second grouping, remember if it starts with a negative, we factor out a negative. So between a -1 and a -6, I can take out a -1. When I take out that -1, -1 divided by -1 gives me a positive 1x, and -6 divided by -1 gives me a positive 6. So the nice thing about this is now these parentheses are the same. So x plus 6 is one of our factors. Our other factor is what we factored out, so x minus 1. And it still equals 0. So at this point, you're going to set x plus 6 equal to 0 and x minus 1 equal to 0 and solve for x. So I would have to subtract 6. I get x equals -6. That's one of my solutions. To get the x by itself here, I would have to add that 1 to the other side, and you get x equals positive 1. So my solutions are -6 and positive 1. Alrighty, let's do, I'm going to have you do number 43 on your own. It's just like my 42. The first thing you want to do is you got to move everything over to one side. So I'll help you get started. Since that's a positive 18, to move it to the other side, we're going to subtract 18. So subtract 18x and put it on the other side. Since this is a -81, I'm going to have to add 81 to get it on the other side. And then all this would go away because we did the opposite. It means it equals 0. So now figure out what is your A, what is your B, what is your C, and factor. Get your two solutions. So do it just like I did number 42. All right, for 46, same kind of thing. First things first, I have to move everything over to the other side and set this thing equal to 0. We like it to look like x squared and then x, so I'm going to move the -9x over first by adding 9x. So I would now add 9x to the other side, and since this is a positive 30, to move it to the other side, I'm going to subtract 30. So now everything has been moved over, so it's set equal to 0. All right, so this one there's a couple things I could do. I was gonna factor out a GCF, but I'm not. I'm just gonna start factoring. So A equals 3, B equals 9, and C equals -30. Okie doke. When I multiply to get A times C, 3 times -30 is -90, and B is 9. So I'm thinking of factors of -90, but they need to add to get a positive 9. Well, obviously I could do 90 times -1, 45 times -2, 30 times -3. What else? 90 divided by -4 doesn't work. 90 divided by, let's see here, does 90 divided by -5 work? Yeah, I didn't know that. So we could do a -5 times an 18. 90 divided by negative 6 is 15. What else? And then I think our last one would be with 9. Yeah, we could do 10 and negative 9. All right. So then we need to figure out which one of these adds to make 9. So 90 plus a negative 1. No, that's 89. 40 plus negative 2. 43. No. 30 plus negative 3. That's 27. So no. 18 plus negative 5 is 13. We're getting closer, but no. 15 plus a negative 6. That's just like doing 15 minus 6, which is 9. So my two factors are 15 and negative 6. All right, now that we know my factors, I'm going to split the middle. So I rewrite everything the same except for that middle. So 3x squared. And instead of writing 9x, I'm going to write plus 15x minus 6x, and then I still write minus 30 equals 0. All right, so now I have my 4 terms. I can group the first 2, group the last 2. Okay, so between a 3x squared and a 15x, I can take out a 3 and an x. So that's going to go here. When I take that out, I'm left with a 3 divided by 3 is just 1. I had 2 x's, I'm taking 1 out, so that's just an x left, plus 15 divided by 3 is 5. I had an x, but I'm taking it out. Again, like that last problem I did, when it starts with a negative, we need to make sure we divide out a negative. And 6 goes into 6 and 30. So I know my GCF, that greatest common factor, is a negative 6. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 is just 1, so I have 1x. Negative 30 divided by negative 6 is positive 5. And I know I did it right because my factors are the same in my parentheses. So one of my factors is x plus 5. Your other factor is what you factored out, 3x and a minus 6. And then we're going to set it equal to 0. All right, so then we can set each of our factors equal to 0. So x plus 5 equals 0, and 3x minus 6 equals 0. And then we'll solve those to get the x by itself. So I'll have to subtract 5, and I get x equals negative 5. And then here, I would add my 6 first, and I would get 3x equals 6. And then I still have to divide by 3 to get rid of it since it's being multiplied, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So 6 divided by 3 makes 2. So my two factors are negative 5 and positive 2. All right, I would like you guys to now do number 47. Don't forget, this means that A equals 6, B equals a negative 1, and C equals a negative 2. So go ahead and see if you can factor that one on your own. All right, flip it on over. So it says on the back here, we're going to graph quadratic functions. So remember, we've just done this pretty recently, so you are going to need a graphing calculator. So if you do not have one, make sure you get one, and please share with each other. Okay, so first things first is we're going to find the axis of symmetry. So I'll do 25, and you're going to do 26. So A equals 1, B equals negative 6, and C equals 8. All right, let's see here. So I'm going to do x equals the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. So if b is negative 6, the opposite of a negative 6 is a positive 6. Divided by, and this means to do 2 times a, so 2 times 1. So 6 divided by 2 means our axis of symmetry is just x equals 3. So I'm going to go over here where it says axis of symmetry. I'm going to put x equals 3. I also know that's the x coordinate to my vertex. So now here's where you're going to need a calculator, and you're going to type, you're going to go to y equals and clear everything out if something's in there, and you're going to type x squared minus 6x plus 8. And then you're going to hit second graph so a table comes up. I'm going to put, this one's looks a little different than what we did. I'm going to put, there's just more. I'm going to put my 3 here because remember, we always want that axis of symmetry somewhere in the middle. So for this, we're going to pick the 3 numbers below it, which would be 0, 1, 2, and 3, and the 3 numbers above it, so 4, 5, and 6. All right, so let me look on my table here. And 0 goes with 8, 1 goes with 3, 2 goes with 0, 3 goes with -1, 4 goes with 0, 5 goes with 3, and 6 goes with 8. So I got that by looking at my table. You could also use Desmos if you want to put it into Desmos to get your table, if you don't have a calculator. All right, so I can see right here that this is my vertex then, because remember, whatever went with our axis of symmetry, that's the x coordinate to the vertex. I'm going to fill some other stuff in. So remember, the domain for any quadratic is always all real numbers. All right, let's plot these points. So 0, 8 means don't go left or right any, just go up 8. All right, I did that one. Next one, right 1, up 3. The next one is just right 2. Don't go up or down any. Then we have 3, -1. That means to go right 3 and down 1. And then we have 4, 0, which means just go right 4. Don't go up or down any. Then right 5, up 3. And then right 6 and up 8. Now remember, this should look like a U. It could be a regular looking U or an upside down shaped U, but it needs to look like a U. If not, go back and check because you may have missed something. All right, so there's our graph. So let's answer the rest of these questions. So remember, the range is, where's our Y values on this graph? So it's basically from here up. So it's going to be y is greater than or equal to, since it's above that line, it's greater than, and it's above right here, which is -1. So y is greater than or equal to -1. Your x-intercepts, or your zeros, is where it crosses the x-axis, so here and here. So it crossed it at 2 and 4, right? So I would write that 2, 0, and 4, 0. So you could have seen that on your table. Wherever y is 0, these will always be your x-intercepts. So you could always have just used your table. Did I say y-intercepts or x? They should have, I don't know what I just said. Anywho, okay, those are your x-intercepts. Your y-intercepts, where it crosses the y-axis, so that's your y-intercept. So that crosses at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So your y-intercept is at 0, 8. You could have found that on your table by looking at when the x is 0, if you want to use your table, or you can always use your graph. It doesn't matter, okay? All right, so that is your answer to number 25. Now I want you to work through number 26 on your own. So remember, to get started, first identify A, B, and C, and then do the opposite of B divided by 2 times A. To get your axis of symmetry, use your calculator, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so you're doing 26. All right, last type of problem that will be on your midterm is the mean, median, and mode. So first thing we have to do is put our data in order from least to greatest. So let's do this. We have 2, we have 3, we have 2 4s, we have 2 5s, we have an 8, we have a 9, we have a 13, and we have a 15. All right, so the mode is the most common. So the most common number would be 4 or 5, right? Because there's 2 of those. So you're allowed to have 2 modes. So our mode is 4 and 5. Our mean, that's when you add all the numbers up and divide by how many there are. So I would do 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5 plus 8 plus 9 plus 13 plus 15. And I get 68. And 68 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 68 divided by 10 is 6.8. So that is the mean. And then the median is the middle number. And that's where it's really important to have these in order from least to greatest. That's where we cross from end to end until we get to the middle. And we're left with two numbers, but they're the same. If they're not the same, you'll do the same thing. You would do 5 plus 5, which is 10, divided by 2, which is 5. So our middle number is 5. So we add those up and divide by 2. So these are our answers for our mean, our median, and our mode. All right, go ahead and try number 2 on your own. Once you finish with number 2, make sure your name is somewhere on this and turn it in and work on your ALEKS topics. Because again, remember, your ALEKS topics are due by today at 3 o'clock, no exceptions. If you have any exam dismissal forms to turn in, please turn those into the tray or get them to the sub, put them on my desk, what have you. If you still don't have yours signed, I need it by Monday. Have a great day.